Greetings, friends. This footage was found on the YouTube channel Denis Shiryaev, and he has remastered and added color to the original film, which was taken in 1901 in the north of England in several different locations, Hollandwood, Rotherham. And so this footage is almost 120 years old. And I thought we could take a look at it. It's only a few minutes. So again, he did add the color. And he added sound effects, but we're not getting that here. But this is a laboring neighborhood. And you can see that many of the men are covered in coal. Okay, let me pause it there. We have an African Brit or we have a black man here. And that's not covered in coal. That's actually, and I know the guy's coloring. He's choosing the colors, but we see here's a white man covered in coal. But this is clearly a black man because of the structure of his head and his nose. And I mean, if you see him from a different angle, I mean, it doesn't matter. I saw other comments like people thinking that, oh, it's impossible. It was possible, but very rare in this period in English history to see anyone who wasn't of a, European origin. But there would be probably, I don't know how many, but very small numbers, but like probably no more than a few thousand people of African origin on the whole island of England at this time. And that's why I think that the people who were there, who were not of European origin, they would naturally assimilate because they had no choice. They had to assimilate. And I'd say that that guy looked to have assimilated pretty well because he's obviously got a white friend there and they're joking around and he's dressed the same as the whites, the same kind of formal attire. I mean, I'm calling it formal attire. These are working class. These are laborers, most likely. But these laborers are dressed more formally than I am today. Because we've gone through the casual revolution, and I am a product of the casual revolution. I wear plain t-shirts and hoodies, and that's about it. And I don't have a cap like that, and I don't have even a simple suit jacket. And look at these kids, even these kids are dressed more formally than anything I have ever worn in public. And we can see that many of the women have their head covered. Most of the women have their head covered. Not all, but certain. And I mean, there's a certain conformity in also how the females dress, how the women dress, how girls dress. But we do see throughout most of this that it is largely the norm for the women to cover their head with a headscarf or a shawl, something like that. And this was normal throughout most of European history after Christ. Certainly in church, women would be required or expected to cover their head. Men would be expected in church, I believe, to take their hat off because it's a different way of how they relate to the divine. But anyways, I do believe this practice is still continued in some Orthodox countries today, like women wearing their head, covering their head in church, and so it's not just the Muslim countries where women are expected to cover up. This was kind of the norm, even in the West, even in Europe, up until fairly recently, up until only 120 years ago. And is it a bad thing? I mean, that's kind of beyond the scope of this video, but not entirely a bad thing to have cultural norms. Do you think all these women are oppressed and suppressed because they're covering their hair? I don't think so. There's no natural reason to assume that they are somehow oppressed. I mean, it looks like there's still a norm, but a lot of them aren't following it, whether that's a good thing or not. Not all of them are following the norm, but the norm is still there. So nobody is trying to stand out. Not like they would have had enough money probably to buy clothes that would make them stand out, and acknowledging that this is a laboring neighborhood. However, no one's trying to stand out, and it seems like they're okay with that. And it's the sort of community you would never see today. And this is a city. I'm not saying cities were great. The Industrial Revolution had some dirty, polluted cities, crowding people together. This looks overcrowded. I'm not saying that this is ideal. A lot of these people look like they're in a precarious, somewhat precarious economic situation. Like if they didn't have their next week's wages, or at least 2 weeks' wages, would they be able to feed themselves? I don't know, but it's something I'm wondering. But what we're seeing here, I mean, despite the Industrial Revolution having a lot of negative things, this shouldn't be about the Industrial Revolution. I'm more interested in looking at the older cultural elements which have not yet been dismantled, which I view mostly as good things. There's more conformity of dress. There's more, obviously, it's ethnically homogeneous, 99.9%. And we see a healthy masculinity amongst these men because they seem to have good social skills. They seem to be genuinely integrated. They're kind of playing around, in a healthy way. It's not too much. And they're all working. I don't know if they like their jobs or not, but so they seem to be more human than men do today. I'm not saying that it was a good idea to just cram people into big cities, but it's more like we're just getting a glimpse at the tail end of the former civilization, the former age. And of course, all of this generation, a lot of these men, 15 years later, it would be the First World War. Less than 15 years later. A lot of these men would be fighting in the trenches, probably. And a lot of them would be wiped out. And then you had the Second World War only 20 years later, after 1918, that is. And then that just put another nail in the coffin of these several generations of healthy masculine men. And we never really recovered from that. Like, this guy's got a chain. He's got a chain. Like, the guy here at the end. Where is he? This guy here coming up. See, he's got a chain here on his nice button-up shirt, but he's got some coal on his face, I think. And just like, it's incredible. This guy, is he a laborer or is he a manager? This guy here, he's got a cool hat. You'd just be laughed at today for wearing something like this, or you'd be thought of as like some sort of snob, wannabe, pretentious person who just can't be taken seriously. Like maybe you're rich, but you're just like you're not, like you're to be despised because who would even wear a top hat? But no, it's like back then there was a lot more conformity of dress, but also a certain wear something nice, wear something that conforms but also can be nice. We've lost a lot of that with our casual revolution. So I thought that was the most interesting thing to me about this footage was that seems to be quite common for white women to cover their head in public up until fairly recently. That was one of the things that really stands out at us today. And yeah, it's just, and there was I'll just close with this. There was an interesting YouTube comment. Let me just see if I can find it here. This is on the original channel which posted this video. And someone says, just realize the fact that all young people in this footage with a curious look looks exactly like we who are all watching this video. And they did, you know, a lot of the people here were gazing at the camera. I mean, film technology was kind of a new thing, and they're gazing at it with this curiosity, like these kids here. But not just the kids, but, you know, like these men here, they can see the camera. Let me see if I can find a better example of that. Yeah, like this young guy here. They're kind of just like, oh, what is this? But we're kind of looking at them. It's not quite the same. It's not like a mirror image, but I'm not speaking for all of us, of course, but there is some curiosity because this is not even the 20s. Footage like this from the 20s, no, that wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same thing anymore. This is old enough because it's pre-war, like pre-World War I. It's old enough that we're gazing, we have a little portrait, a little window into a totally different world. And so we're seeing these people like kind of astonished looking at the camera, in a way looking at us, and we're looking back at them, and we're just as astonished. Hasta luego, amigos.